Here we go. So let's start again. Bobby, you're number one. Gold medal's in the mail, my friend. Hey, London, how are you? And again, this question. I gave a good answer to this question, I think. I get to do it again. That's great. Hope you're doing well. Could you give us an update on the funding round? Is the Shaykh money coming in? So I'll use the same joke I used last time. It's not really a joke. It's actually the truth. Shaykh or Sheik. I think it's Shaykh, but I've said Sheik in the past, which is probably inaccurate. But no one ever said anything. So I kind of got confused, and I wasn't really sure what was the right way to pronounce the word. But we have a 4-step plan right now given to us by the investor on how to close this. We're into step 1 and 2 right now. Can't go to step 3 until we get step 2 done. Step 2 involves a bit of time, hopefully not much. We're waiting on some information from the investor right now so we can finalize step 2. And then we'll move on to step 3, which is signature. And from step 3, we move to step 4, which is money in the bank. And everybody happy, running around, waving their hands in the air. So we're getting there, man. We're getting there. What's up with the tier restructure? We've been screaming for tier updates for almost a year since the new floor. Nobody will drop 6CAN T1 in an illiquid market, no amount of web updates. So my comment on this is just because you mentioned the website. The new website is absolutely SEO optimized, which none of our other websites ever were. And it's absolutely built to convert. So whether or not it helps the tiers, I think indirectly it absolutely will. But whether it helps them directly can be a question in your mind. But that new website definitely was a priority and needed to be a priority. In fact, it should have been a priority a long time ago. And the teams worked an immense amount of time, an immense amount of hours to get that thing over the line. And I think they did an amazing job. When it comes to tiers, I've seen internal design and internal memos and Confluence pages about tier updates. They are coming. Unfortunately, because of, essentially like this old revolving story of resources, because of a lack of resources and us pulling some resources and trying to get our cost base down to a certain level because we're fundraising, all these great things. We haven't had, the resources we needed to be able to focus on this specific task, but it is in a list of tasks to be focused on. And now that the website's out of the way, some of our dev resources, which were all placed on the website over the last few weeks, can now move to start to work on things like this. Hey, Darwin. Let's get this done. Again, this is the second time. I'm going to introduce Darwin, everybody. Darwin works in our Mexican office. He's a great guy. Give him a shout out. How much of those 25 million is secured? I think I gave a grammar lesson on this one, so maybe I shouldn't do it, but I'm going to do it anyway. I think it should be how much of the 25 million is secured. But someone who speaks actual English, like from England, might want to correct me on that. Maybe those 25 millions is accurate, even though in my mind, it kind of sounds like nails on a chalkboard. Anyway, wannabe. So right now, via soft commitments, about 70% of that money secured. What does soft commitment mean? Well, soft commitment, I'm going to give you money. Let's start exchanging documents, blah, 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 blah. Hard commitment, signature on a dotted line, and money in transit. So working to get these soft commitments to hard commitments. Do you like the new website? Absolutely. Love the new website. I gave a 2 or 3 minute voice message to everybody involved in the website from our side. I know they spent a massive amount of hours. There was a massive amount of work done from multiple departments to get that thing over the line. It is the best website we've ever had. I do think it's going to change our conversion rates. Night and day, to be honest. And while I'm not the biggest, I've never been the biggest fan personally of like pictures of people smiling at each other on websites. Everybody puts people smiling at each other on websites because, well, it gives a connection to people who are looking at a website, I guess. But I learned a long time ago in business, if I don't like something, it doesn't really mean anything if it works. And if I love something and it doesn't work, again, meaningless. So here, I'm happy. I think the website is amazing. I think it flows great. I think it looks great on different types of devices. And I'm ready to see how it performs. What's your take on Encrypgen? This question. I had fun answering this one. Not really. I don't know much about the current situation. All I know is that they did reach out to us, the new owners, to try and change ownership on the Ignium account. That could have been one of the reasons for a delay. Right now, I don't know the current situation, so I'll have to try to find out for you guys, and then you can hit me up on Telegram, and I can try to give you an update. What I would say is, and don't take this as me saying this is what's happening in this particular situation. This is just me playing devil's advocate, just me being Kevin, and me trying to spit some truth to you guys. Bonds default all the time. I'm not saying this one's going to default. I'm not saying it has defaulted. All I'm saying is it happens. And I hope that's not the case. I will try to get some more information to figure out what we know on our side. whether it's a technical issue that we have to solve in terms of Ignium or Coinmetro, or Ignium mostly, or if it's some other issue, a funding issue, moving money, et cetera, which is something that while we can't solve, we can definitely try and help Encrypgen get that thing over the line. Can you please tell me everything's going to be all right? I tried to pronounce your name a couple minutes ago. I'll try to pronounce it again. Nayusufu? Fuck, man, I don't know. I can't pronounce that name. Everything's gonna be all right, man. 100%. Everything's gonna be all right. So no audio. I think I fixed that. So that's awesome. Which steps do you need to go push the overall daily volume to 8 digits? We slacking here, and the best solution for the wall is to have volume. Which steps do you? I guess which steps I think are needed. I guess that's the question, right? Well, the website, even though it may seem like a small step in our overall big journey, helps conversions. We have people, obviously, that come to the website, don't know what we do, and leave. We have people that come to the website, kind of figure out what we do, but it's not compelling enough for them to move on. The website, I believe, is a great step 1, 2, and 3. That step 1 is people actually understanding what we do, people actually clicking a button and converting and becoming clients. So we have a rollout of another renewed version of our onboarding process, which I think is going to help as well, and our deposit and withdrawal flows. We've been studying drop-offs for a long time here. On drop-off, essentially, somebody hits the website, okay, you get a drop-off. They have to go through the onboarding process, drop-off. Then they have to upload an ID, whatever, drop-off. Then they have to make the first deposit, drop-off. And we're trying to figure out why that is. And we've spotted a few things. There's some hypotheses in there, some educated guesses, and there's some things based on fact. And a lot of changes are coming down over the next 2 sprints, basically. So the next 2 to 4 weeks that are going to change that process we feel that combined with the new website is going to help us get more conversions. So that's one major step in the right direction. The other side of that is just spending money on marketing, which is one of the reasons why we're doing a fundraise right now, so we can bring in capital. So we have a bit of a war chest so that we're able to compete and also be proactive, and not just proactive, but also be pushing out constant marketing efforts and also jumping on news and trying to get traction with things that are happening in the market. At the end of the day, people bring volume. All right, yeah, everybody making fun of me for not having sound. Okay, there's a lot of these. Okay. Do you still believe Kadena and Parsiq tokens are needed? Has your outlook regarding them changed in this bear season? No, neither of the outlook hasn't changed. Are needed. Well, Kadena's token is a layer 1. I mean, it literally is the token by which you pay gas, et cetera, to move assets on Kadena. So yeah, absolutely needed. PRQ, I think Parsiq made a few, in my mind, made a few missteps when they started releasing different token types and kind of confusing a bit their base. But I still believe that the Parsiq token has value. I think it holds a lot of value. And I think the company's actually bigger and making more money than they made the last time the PRQ token spiked. And obviously that was inside of a bull market. I think in the next bull market, both of these are going to do well. That's just my opinion. It's not advice, but that's still my opinion. It hasn't changed. I think I said before, if I like something at this price and it's cheaper, I like it even more. I don't dislike something because it went down in value. If I liked it at, $3, I definitely like it at 10 cents. Hope you remember all the things you just said because you were going to say them again, Kevin. Yeah. Well, I did. Hopefully I don't have to say them 3 times, man. If I lose audio again, I'm just leaving, I think, at this point. Have you considered listing Shiba or Dodge or Pepe since you listed ApeCoin? No, I haven't considered it. No, but I'm not even. I don't even really participate in the listing committee, so I'm not the one to ask. ApeCoin has utility. If you look up ApeCoin, look to see what it does and what type of utility it has. Those other tokens do not, and I think that's the major difference. Yeah, we talked about this a little bit. So Encrypgen, I don't know if it's a technical issue, to be quite honest, or if it's an issue that is not on our side. So I have to find that out. If it is on our side, we will fix it. If it's not on our side, we will do everything we can to try and get the thing over the line to the best of our abilities, given whatever the situation may be. Any chance of a return of the double weekend staking soon? I guess there's a chance, though right now it's not in the cards. We don't have any plans to do it. Apologies, everyone. I'm doing best to get his attention. Okay. I do have sound now. Hopefully there's sound now. Shit. If Coinmetro knows secure funzu and goes poo poo pee pee, well, this, I don't know what language this is, but for some reason I can understand it, which is crazy, because normally if I don't know a language, it's kind of hard to understand. What will happen to my shiny coins? Will you take care of my hamster? I'm terrible with hamsters, actually. So 2 of my daughters had hamsters when they were kids. One froze to death. One got stepped on. I didn't step on it, and I wasn't the cause of it freezing to death. I did hold a hamster funeral for the one that froze to death. I think it was put into a butter container and buried in the front garden. I oversaw it. I made sure it was to code, and it was an amazing, absolutely an amazing event. I didn't cry, but I wanted to. Anyway, so shiny coins. So in the event, if we don't find funding, the goal would be to make Coinmetro function given its current revenue, which would mean a drastic reduction in cost, which we've already started to do. In fact, we've shaved off a lot of cost without having really to let a lot of personnel go, which I think is fantastic. We've shaved down cost. We can shave it down more. We'll get to a point where we are just about essentially self-sustainable, and just continue to look for funds so that we can ramp back up. So, but in the event, let's say Coinmetro, stop being a functioning business, it would depend. If someone came in and bought us out, for pennies on the dollar or something, I'm sure they would still keep the tokens because there's some in treasury. They'd be stupid not to. If it's just a case that the company, ceased to exist, well, then the coins probably wouldn't have any value. And if they did, they'd have a very small value on the open market. But I don't think that's going to happen. Okay, let's see. Everybody makes mistakes. Yeah, well, anyway, it was only 7 minutes, guys. Come on. That was a long time to talk to yourself, though. Will there ever be anything for those of us that survived the price floor shenanigans, like ICO holders? Will there ever be anything? I think you got to clarify that one for me. Like what? I think we've given a lot of benefits back to ICO holders over the years. The goal will always be to give back to ICO holders. The bigger we get, probably the bigger those rewards will become. But you gotta let me know. I think increase in price once XCM starts to get into more hands of holders is probably a pretty big benefit for everybody. There's a huge echo, huh? All right. Well, I'm doing my best, guys. Next week I'll try to get a better microphone in here. Yeah, there's that's 7 minutes of my life I'm never going to get back. At least you were just sitting confused why you couldn't hear me. I was talking to nobody. It's pronounced Shaykh. Shaykh. Ah, see? Thank you. I really do appreciate that, Musab. You're saving my life, my friend. What's up with the Flux situation? The drop in parallel assets should have been paid out. We're just talking about that earlier. Well, yesterday actually came up in what we call our weekly business review. That will be paid imminently. What kind of steps does CM have to take to get the investment? I can't release the 4 steps because obviously these things are confidential between the investor and Coinmetro. Point is that there are 4 steps. They're administrative, and step 1 is done. Step 2 is in the process. Step 2 requires kind of both parties to work together. That's what we're doing now. Step 3 and 4 are just signature and kind of money in the bank. No, sir. Coinmetro bonders also not yet removed from my account. So when fix Coinmetro bonders? Coinmetro bonds. Okay. On the Ignium side. Well, there's definitely a very limited amount of resources right now for Ignium because even the staff that there's one person, I think, that was with Ignium that's still with us. That handles some things on a part-time basis. On the other hand, we haven't yet started to integrate Ignium services into Coinmetro because we're still lacking a bit of resources on Coinmetro side. So it will be fixed, I can tell you that. But for now, I don't have a date. That's something you can definitely ask for on Telegram, though, and I'll try to get some more information for you. Is anyone else providing day-to-day leadership in CM since you are full-time fundraising? We have essentially a committee which basically does day-to-day decision making. And that's part of that weekly business review. It's something relatively new for us. We put that in place not so long ago. I'm still, available, even though, and I still read almost every message that pops across Slack, that pops across all these different tools that we use, even though obviously you're right, my focus is on fundraising almost entirely. But we're able to get things over the line, and this committee is definitely helping. Hey, Kevin, it's like the third or fourth time I'm able to catch you live in all those years. Well, appreciate that. Sorry for the first 7 minutes of me babbling to myself. With the upcoming investor money, how much % has CM sold of the company? That's going to depend, because every ticket is a bit different. Valuations generally remain the same, but sometimes can be slightly different, especially when there's big tickets involved. So I won't really know that until we finalize the round. But I think, anyway, again, I won't know that. I don't know it now. I will know it once we finalize the round. And then you can ask that question again. What do you need to beat Bitso in Mexico? At least local bank transfers are needed. I'd like to help with Spanish-related things. Local bank transfers are needed. We can get those through a third party with Coinmetro out of Estonia. But in order to do it in Mexico, we are required to have the fintech license, which we are in the process of acquiring, but it's about an 18-month process. So we can get them temporarily through a third party, though the cost will be higher. Though, if I remember correctly, we saw at least one third party that we could work with where cost per transfer was maybe 5 pesos. So while it wasn't free, essentially, like it normally is, it wasn't such an elevated cost. But that's something that we definitely need to look into. And you're right, that is normally when we go into any market, before we go into the market, the first thing we look for are localized transfers. Echo went away. Oh, great. Glad to hear that, Kim. Would you consider going back to a more frequent AMA schedule once the funding round is closed? I love doing AMAs, so I would. It all depends on our head of communications. You got to ask Dasha about that. Hit her up on Telegram. How large is it? Well, that's I don't know what you're asking about there, and I'm just going to move on from that question. How do you deal with significant unrealized losses, alcohol or cocaine? Well, neither of those work, I think. Not that I've tried either or both at the same time. Significant. Well, I wouldn't be holding anything with a significant unrealized loss. Been there, done that, man, and dealt with it by just losing all my hair, freaking out, and not sleeping. And not sleeping doesn't help the market return to a price that makes you profitable. Funny enough, stressing out, losing your hair, getting fat, eating Twinkies, drinking so much Diet Coke, you almost have a fucking aneurysm, actually doesn't help move the market in the right direction. I mean, you would think it would. Common sense would tell you that would work, but no, it doesn't. It doesn't at all. And definitely alcohol and cocaine aren't going to help. That's for sure. And sorry for this general already tired question. Can you share at least your opinion about global markets from here to mid-2024, including and specifically Bitcoin? Look, I mentioned this at the beginning of the year. I still think it could be accurate. Some things have changed, but I generally think sometime towards end of Q3 and Q4, we're going to see major economies printing money again. Now, we did see Powell in the U.S. have that last raise of 0.25% when the market thought that maybe they would save off and not raise. I don't think they're going to raise anymore. I don't expect additional raises. Now, that doesn't mean they won't fucking do it, but I don't think they will. However, the big question in my mind is, before the end of the year, will they cut? Right now, the market's probably pointing to the fact that they won't cut. They might stave off, meaning they're not going to raise anymore, but they might not cut. If they cut, money printing's right around the corner. Maybe that doesn't happen now until Q1 2024. So we'll have to see. But definitely by mid-2024, as per your question, I think they're printing money again. They're printing money again. We're going to see another bubble like we saw the last time money was printed. Is that good long-term? No, fuck no, it's not. But is it good short-term? Yeah, probably. I think eventually all these different cycles that people generally don't pay attention to, they're starting to pay attention. They're starting to pay attention because narratives like Bitcoin are out there, understanding the connection of centralized money to banks and why that might not be a great fucking thing, seeing what's happening in Lebanon, seeing what's happening in other parts of the world where people are literally told they can't get access to their own money. All these things are going to come to a head, and people are going to realize that this alternative that might be volatile, that maybe the powers that be are telling them is not the best place to put their money, sounds a whole lot better than where they currently have their money, especially if they can't access it. So what does that mean by mid-2024, the world becomes smarter? Well, no, probably not, unfortunately. I wish the world was smarter. It would be a much cooler place to live in, but it's not, and it's probably not going to change by mid-2024. However, I generally think once the money printers are turned on, and they will be turned back on, we're going to see the initiation of another bull run in crypto. That's probably going to tie in, not precisely, but relatively right before the next halving. That's probably will be the next push for Bitcoin in general. There's still going to be a overlap between Bitcoin pricing and the rest of the market, which means when Bitcoin starts to move, the rest of the market will probably move with it. Not every asset, not every token, not every coin, not every asset's going to move, but many will. The market in general will move. We'll head back up towards that 2 trillion or maybe even higher, depending on what the market does. So I'm not necessarily bullish yet. We have to see what happens, especially from the Fed in the U.S. And see if they stop raising, and then get an idea when they might start printing. How do you deal with something? I already answered that one. All right. I'll make sure you leave a like. Yeah, thanks, guys. Likes are cool. We like likes, hearts, confetti, thumbs up. Whatever. I don't know. Why is the yellow thumb the default one? Has anybody figured that one out yet? I know they got all the colors now and shit. I don't bother ever changing the color because it's like a whole extra button push, or I got to slide my finger somewhere. I just go yellow. Just wonder why yellow was. Why is that? Any new viewpoint on Kadena? I still like Kadena. Would still buy Kadena. I haven't bought any in this most recent dip, but I still like Kadena. Is the general business culture regarding fundraising in the UAE very different compared to Western investors? In some ways. In other ways, no. Raising money is always the same. You generally get the same questions. I think, the amount of money that's available in the UAE and the fact that they're not so scared of losing it because they still have money flowing in, lots of cash flow, I think makes it a bit different generally speaking. Also, the fact that they want to become a hub for fintech, crypto, AI, etc. Even though the rest of the world right now is a little bit cautious about crypto in terms of investing, especially after FTX, etc. The UAE wants to take over that market, so they're more aggressive. They're ready to kind of take a little bit more risk than, say, Western investors and VCs. But that's not going to last forever. Obviously, once they get right now they're getting their toe wet. Once they get the whole foot and leg in the water, I think you're going to see something very similar to what we see in the West. They will pull back and they'll start to assess a bit and see where they want to go next. What do you think of the amount of stake tokens overall on the platform? We need to market our staking programs. We haven't done that yet. And I think it can be much higher. Do you think you'll be fully gray before XCM hits €1? No, the beard might be. I got this whole patch working right now. If I keep it short, you can't really tell, but as it gets longer, you start getting this, whatever the fuck this is called. But hair on my head, no, man. I think the sides are going to stay relatively dark until I'm, old. Unless you think I'm old now, then I already made it. And I guess I should pat myself on the back. Oops. Yeah. Oops. Are the leaderboards still on the planning? Most volume, most referrals. They are. There was a story, was it a Wall Street Journal maybe relatively recently, 2 months ago or something, that was trying to say that leaderboards and gamification could potentially lead down the road to something being deemed a security or some type of regulated offering. I forget where I read that. Maybe it had to do with Robinhood. But yeah, the gamification and leaderboards in general are still within our gamification plan. I'm especially wondering how much XCM I need for you to consider me a whale, and I get a direct line to you to discuss Coinmetro directions. Look, man, anybody can DM me on Telegram. And if you have some good suggestions and I simply I like the way your mind works, then we're going to have a chat. You don't need to have any amount of XCM. But if you want to buy 1 million, have at it. I'm not gonna stop you. In fact, I'll even I might send you a personalized selfie if you do that. I don't know what value that thing would have, but you guys ever see the pillow that someone airbrushed with my image on it? I lost sleep about that one. Any hints on why SEPA withdrawals are reported to be slow right now? I don't think it's there's a bit of transition happening at our main SEPA provider, and there's a bit of confusion there because there's a couple entities that are changing. One changed ownership. There was some technical stuff working there as well. Plus, we have one of our major liquidity providers was settling in USD. We had to move that to settlement in Euro. That took some time. Now that Euro goes to a place where there isn't SEPA instant, so we have to get it into one account and then SEPA slow it over to another account in order to process withdrawals. So we're still kind of working through that flow and understanding what we need on a daily basis in terms of a float. So that's causing some delays, but we're working on it. And I think relatively soon we're going to get caught back up. What about IBANs and cards? Did they take a back seat again? Yeah, well, the current provider has now said that because of, I guess, their connection to their main banking provider in Europe, that they cannot provide those services to crypto companies. And so it's back to the drawing board on that one, unfortunately. What's the best way to preserve wealth? Precious metals? That depends on your portfolio, man. I would say no, not precious metals. I don't think they preserve wealth well at all. I'll give you the story I give everybody. Give me 1 second. So 1986, my grandfather bought gold. It was roughly $900 an ounce. 86, I was 84, 85, 86. Maybe it could have been even 89. Let's say the 80s for roughly $900 an ounce. So take inflation, find an inflation calculator, even go from 89. Take the last year of the decade of the 1980s and go till now based on just normal inflation and see what $900 equals. I guarantee you it's more than gold currently costs. Now, is that better than holding US dollars? Yeah, probably. Even though when you see those charts, it's like US dollar has lost 2 billion% of its buying power. Well, that really depends on how you look at that equation. Anyway, it's still better than holding paper money. Yes. But it depends on a lot of things. If you're 70 years old and you're trying to preserve your wealth, there's a different, a whole different way that you should be looking at it than if you're 20. It all depends on how much risk you're willing to take. It all depends on what kind of outcome you're looking for. Is it just preservation? Is it growth and preservation? Is it more preservation than growth? Is it more growth than preservation, et cetera, et cetera? Again, how much risk are you willing to take? And depending on that, that's how you come up with a plan. Yellow is neutral. All right. Do you believe Trump won the 2020 election and will win the 2024? I think in every election, in every place in the world, there is some level of fraud. 100%. What is the level? And I think people that deny that it exists are just, to be honest, idiots. Because in every process that humans run, there is some level of fraud. Every process. Well, fraud is a strong word. There's some level of oversight that gets missed, right? You double up an email to somebody. You process a transaction twice by mistake. Someone comes in and says, "Oh, this is my email," and no one checks it. Whatever. Every process has some level of oversight that gets missed, and in some cases, it's fraud for sure. But every election has election fraud. First, 100%. There's no way they don't. Now, how much would that have swayed the election? I have no idea, and I don't think it really matters at this point. Do I think he can win the 2024 election? I think he can. Yeah. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I still think it's rather ridiculous that a country has, 2 80-year-old white dudes, and that's their only choice potentially to run the country. It seems a bit fucking weird. How is it possible that neither side can come up with a candidate that's not, on their fucking deathbed? There's so many aspects of Trump that are, I wouldn't say confusing. I would say the word interesting. That I like, don't like, whatever. But at the end of the day, I think he can win, and that should tell you a lot about the state of politics in the U.S. and globally. To be honest, the fact that a candidate, whether or not legal problems are legitimate or not, whether or not things that have been said about him are true or not, the amount of negative information that exists around that candidate, and he's still going to be the front runner. We've never really seen that before in modern politics. I mean, honestly, usually in modern politics, a dude throws a piece of gum on the ground without throwing it in the trash, and somebody catches him on camera, and he's out of the fucking race. And here, wow. What do you think about the main companies developing AI, about growth potential, even if they are already the biggest? Well, AI has a lot of potential. We already know that. You have to understand, though, in all new technologies, you have this, and then you have a plateau, then you're going to see a crash, and then you're going to see a gradual buildup again. So eventually, these companies that went from zero to being valued at 100 quadrillion jajillion dollars are going to take a major hit at some point. They're going to even off, and they're going to take a major hit. But AI is here to stay. I think we can all see that. My real questions about AI are kind of, is this whole kind of scary scenario about, oh, once you unleash the AI, it's just going to keep getting smarter until it becomes so smart that it overrides anything that we try to program into that system? Or are there going to be certain ceilings reached based on how it was programmed because of the limitations of the human who programmed it? So it hits a ceiling and needs additional human input or in order to be able to move to the next ceiling. And that's one of the most interesting, that's one of the things that kind of pops into my head, at least when I think about it. But there's definitely growth potential. Timing in that's going to be difficult, though. Like I said, there's going to be at some point a leveling off, a cool down, and a crash. The key is timing that. When you see the cool down, get ready for the crash and try to buy into companies not at the high. What do you think you can expect for election season, alien invasion, World War III, total bank implosions? It depends on who the front runner is, because obviously the narrative is going to be pushed around that. For example, if Republicans are front running, then the economy is going to be, not talked about as much, because the Democrats don't want a bad economy, because what would happen is, as well, again, this is in the U.S. specifically, but they don't want to have a bad economy in the news because they feel that that would give points to the Republicans. If you have, Republican front, when the Republicans are absolutely, or the Democrats are absolutely destroying the Republicans in terms of, polls, et cetera, you're going to hear a lot of talk about the economy. World War III, well, generally speaking, again, it's kind of it's not very bipartisan when it comes to war. There's always usually one side that's going to be for, one against. So it really depends on what the polls look like, unfortunately. But anything, man, I'm ready for anything. 2020, 2021, 22, they've all been fucking crazy in terms of narratives in the news. And I don't expect that to change, to be honest. Are you still more bullish on ETH than other alts? Why? Because it's the most adopted. Well, I don't know if I even consider ETH an alt. I mean, I know Bitcoin Maximals will call it an alt because it's not Bitcoin, but I consider it a major. I mean, Bitcoin, ETH, to be honest, are probably the only two majors in reality, though, some people may throw XRP in there. Some people may throw Litecoin in there. To me, though, the only two, that's where all the liquidity. Bitcoin has the vast majority of liquidity. ETH is number two. After that, nothing really matters. Why? Well, utility, adoption. So adoption is definitely a big one. The fact that they continue to push out different ERC protocols in order to solve problems and try to kind of carve out a niche in every possible industry, every possible problem that may exist, with smart contracts and with tokens. I don't really see anybody else pushing that hard. And they have so much adoption already. There's been so much money spent. Unless someone comes in with a system that is, drastically different. And cost, even though in our minds, especially as retail investors, cost is always going to be front and center, like, oh, this is cheaper. When it comes to, real money, cost is never the first thing people think about, ever, really. I mean, unless it's so exorbitantly high, like, oh, it's 10,000 US dollars just in a transfer on Ethereum. Even if it's 1,000, but it's going to make it, you absolutely know that the protocol is going to work, and you absolutely know there's going to be liquidity on the other end to exit, then institutions aren't going to care. Big money will be moved on Ethereum all the time over anything else, even if it's free. And so, I still think, yes, it's probably the most attractive alt. What will investors be able to vote in regards to biz dev and features on the funding run? Wait a minute. What will the investors be able to vote on in what? Are you saying when? When will investors, or what will they be able to vote on? I'm missing the point here, wannabe. There will be, so investors that came in at any one of our rounds all hold B class shares. They're non-voting shares. We do hold shareholder meetings. We're actually due to have one, so we probably will have one relatively soon. Where things are discussed but not necessarily voted on. A-class shareholders have the ability to vote. But let me please clarify that if that's not answering your question. Are Republicans better for U.S. markets than Democrats? Well, historically, Republicans are more about business and kind of helping businesses and reducing tax burdens so businesses stay in the U.S. and helping job creation, et cetera. It used to be that, you had Republicans and Democrats, and they were relatively different. One was, right and left. Now we have an ultra right and an ultra left. And to be honest, Republicans and Democrats, normal Republicans and Democrats, are almost the same. It's very difficult in terms of maybe not talking points, but actual policy. The difference between a normal Republican, so not far right or far left, but just right or left. Then you have your extremities, which are extremely different. And we see that a lot now in modern politics. But historically speaking, yes, Republicans are better for the markets. And the market kind of reacts better to Republicans than it does to Democrats. So most people believe, because the market is people at the end of the day, so most people believe that Republicans are better for markets. Can we expect Coinmetro to have a debit card at some point? We can expect that, yeah. Timing on that's going to be hard to pin down now because of recent supplier changes. Yeah, we need fucking normal people. Would you hire an 80-year-old CEO? No. I mean, if I was selling, hemorrhoid donuts or some shit, or denture cream, yeah, because that dude probably knows a lot about that stuff. Could school us all. When will you see the Flux parallel asset payouts? They're coming. They're coming shortly, man. There was a discussion about it yesterday in our weekly business review. Any updated opinions on Quant's progression as a company and the importance of their token being on public exchanges? Not really. I haven't really paid attention to Quant at all. Obviously, I've seen the price movements, but other than that, I almost know nothing about what's happening with Quant. Been waiting on their gateways and et cetera for a long time. Haven't had any discussion with anybody at Quant in a very long time. Any token being on public exchanges obviously gives more exposure and eventually can lead to liquidity and eventually can lead to more holders, which at the end of the day is good for a token. So, for example, Nvidia is already very overvalued, and I'd like to invest in Microsoft and Alphabet. But as you say, having good timing is very hard. Tesla's XAI could also be a huge once released. Yeah, Nvidia. Well, the whole mining game and gaming, etc. You're probably at a you're probably getting close to a plateau on Nvidia. Again, all markets see this. You see, exponential growth, plateau, crash, and then the winners come out, and then there's usually slow growth up to a point where you kind of get back to all-time highs. Yeah, the X company, the all-in-one kind of WeChat for US could be a major thing. But there's a lot that needs to be done to get that off the ground. Ethereum is a nightmare to use. Yeah, well, it's an underlying protocol, right? It's kind of like saying electricity is a nightmare to use. Yeah, if we didn't have all these other things like plugs, and if you were just trying to, have some raw electrical wire in your house trying to figure out how to run something off of it, you'd have a hard time. There just hasn't been enough infrastructure made so that these things become much more user-friendly. But that's going to happen. And when it happens, Ethereum is still much more adopted in terms of use cases outside of store of value or currency than any other chain by leaps and bounds. For example, if Solana finally fixes its up-down problems, technology, it seems much better. Yeah, but at the end of the day, does that really matter? I mean, think about it should matter, but does it? Think about all the technical innovations and who won out. Betamax and VHS. Betamax held more data, better picture, better sound. Lost. Even when you had HD DVD and Blu-ray, Blu-ray won. Why? Because it was supported by Sony and a few other big companies, but not because it was better. Remember mini discs? Mini discs were fucking amazing. They held the same amount of information as a regular CD. They were small. They were encased in these little plastic shells so they couldn't get scratched. And the sound quality was fucking amazing. Didn't work. So I think it really depends on, you think about Ethereum, there's so many traditional financial enterprises that already use it, the backers, so to speak, and it's had a major amount of kind of first mover status over the last few years. So I don't know. I don't know if Solana can beat. I think Solana is too centralized to be able to win out in the long run. To be quite honest, if you have the investors on board, will you support the XCM book? Yes. We have a plan in place. It's not about just throwing a bunch of money at the book, because that's what some investors tried to do last time. It didn't work. It's about systematic market making, and we have both automated market making, an actual trader that's going to market make, and a plan as well that will allow us to inject certain amounts of capital on a daily basis to basically play on both sides of the book and market make. So yes, the answer to that is an absolute yes. Early listing gems really pushed in good communities and users like Quant, BXV, KDA. One Coinmetro Gem Exchange again. I love gems. Yeah, so do we. And I think that's something that we always want to be focused on. It's just it's a long game, and so it has to be part of our strategy. But we need a short game as well. And we've been working on the short game, that new website, conversions, adding listings that people that we think can bring volume that fall relatively within our same modus operandi. But long-term, that long-term strategy, I don't want to lose either. And I don't think we've lost it. It's just a little bit on pause. Yeah, many just were amazing, man. Did the new ML tool change the Coinmetro hedge on client support? Did the new changed the Coinmetro hedge? I do not know what that question means. I'm sorry. I have no idea. Please, you gotta clarify that one for me. Do you agree that the price floor has a negative influence on Coinmetro ecosystem because XCM is so integrated? Rebates, affiliate rewards also lose their euro value. Well, I think, and I know it's been a year, which is far longer than I thought it was going to take, but I think in the short term, yeah, potentially it does. But I'm not sure that having XCM at a much smaller value in comparison would be better. I don't think it would be way more liquid either. I don't think we would be, having such a liquid market between buy and sells, even if the price was significantly lower. I think there's a lot of things that play into that. And I think the floor itself is a piece, but not necessarily a majority piece of why the market is illiquid and why volumes on XCM are low. The EU agreed this week that the DAC will go into effect 2026. How do you see it affecting Coinmetro, DEXs in general, and crypto in general? I believe DAC is the tracking of every transaction on crypto, identifying every transaction. Please correct me if I'm wrong, because I read these things, but I don't necessarily remember, the DAC, for example, the names and the acronyms. It's going to have a major effect all across the board. In reality, we already do this, but obviously there are changes sometimes, especially just somebody asked about gems. When we list a gem and it's a new token, a lot of the things that we use to track transactions aren't tracking that token yet. And so there's going to be, I think, a lot of pushback from the industry up until this thing's released. I bet you changes happen. I bet you may even see a delay. I bet you it gets kicked down the road a little bit as well. And the reason is that it's going to affect a lot of the ways that companies that use crypto, even from a merchant perspective. Why? Because what happens when someone transfers you funds from a DEX? What do you do? Can you accept them? Do you not accept them? How do you know who owns those funds if they come directly from a DEX? Well, people have to use intermediate wallets. If that's the case, if they can just go open a wallet at a wallet provider without providing identification, is that really better? Is that going to be allowed? There's a lot of questions. But let me know if that's what you're talking about. If not, please just give me a quick clarifying statement and about what DAC is, and I can comment on it. Machine learning, AI for client support. Okay. I was thinking money laundering, which is why I completely just fell off track. I like having humans in customer support, to be honest. I do think at some point AI will take over some of that job. And when we have bots, I think those bots are going to get much smarter. I think it'll help with the client experience. But at the end of the day, I think having competent people there is still always going to be something that separates us from the rest of the pack. Yeah, not yet. Working on it, though. Step 2 of 4 to get that bad boy with ink on paper. How do you do for the new site? Very important for ensuring usability and not scaring away new customers. That's a great question. And to be honest, it's one I can't answer, actually. But you can push that one in Telegram. We'll get someone from marketing to let you know what kind of tests they did. But I don't know, actually. That's a great question. Will there be another change to the book? Other limits like specific XCM per week once the MM starts? Good question, Harold. Potentially. I don't want to rule it out. I'd rather not do it. But you out of anybody in the room, understand that if there's a ton of volume sitting on the sell side, how do we start to market make? Because even if we throw 5,000 top a book, it's just going to get eaten up right away, and then it's gone. And then, well, what do we do now? We can't even get on the other side of the book, right? So we may have to adjust things without having people adjust. Maybe people with 60 cent orders get pushed to 62 cents, and we start marketing at six. I don't know. We'll have to see. That's going to be something that we'll kind of think on and make a decision with the people who are going to be doing the market making once we get closer to getting that done. How happy are you with the final MiCA draft? Is it a step in the right direction relative? It's a step in the right direction. I'm not entirely happy with it. I don't think anybody should be. It's a step in the right direction. It's definitely a better piece of legislation than exists almost anywhere else in the first world. Better than, I would say, better than the UK. I would say definitely better than the US, where really nothing exists. Better than Japan in some ways, absolutely. In some ways, no. So it definitely is a step in the right direction, but you were never going to get it to a point where regulation is kind of savvy enough, dynamic enough, and pro-business enough that still generally does what needs to be done to protect consumers, unfortunately. But this is definitely better than I thought it was going to be. So +1 for that. Will MiCA be overall good for the exchange? Maybe provide clarity. It'll be good in some ways. It'll create some costs, and it'll also create some additional oversight, which I don't think really helps anybody at the end of the day. But overall, I think generally it's good. And it also helps weed out some competition that may be doing things that we can't do, and that allows them to grow quicker than we can. So getting everybody on the same playing field in terms of competitive advantage, I think, is a good thing. Get it out. All right. By the way, scalping in CM still isn't convenient, even with BTC. Looking at its time and scales, when I place a trade, it worries me to see in the column after hours being a very small frequency from others. Yeah, that's part and parcel to liquidity providers. Definitely, we've seen liquidity from our different liquidity providers get worse after FTX, and we've been working with them constantly to try to get that better. We also have some internal changes that we plan on making to those books. That's probably going to happen after fundraising, but our goal is to make sure that every type of trader has a good home at Coinmetro, not just those that kind of buy and hold. When do you anticipate going for big VC funding in the hundreds of millions? That's probably going to be in the very next round. So maybe end of 2024, going into 2025, somewhere in that range. All right, guys, that leads up to the last question. We're about 5 minutes off of 1 hour. Obviously, I had 7 minutes talking to myself, so that means 48 minutes. I hope everybody has a great rest of your Thursday. I hope you have a great Friday and a great weekend coming up. If you can't spend time with friends and family physically, do it virtually. You should all be able to do it physically now. Maybe you just don't want to. I don't know. That's definitely a possibility. But spend time with friends and family. Put a smile on people's faces. Have a great weekend. Obviously, buy XCM, because why wouldn't you? I mean, come on, guys. No. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going on from there. Thanks, everybody. You can always tag me on Telegram at Kevin Murcko. You can tweet me at Kevin Murcko on Twitter. I'm pretty much Kevin Murcko everywhere. I did get rid of Instagram because I never use it, and for a technical reason as well. But I'm still on Telegram. Hit me up at Kevin Murcko. Like I said, I'll answer your questions there. I'll drop in. I drop in at least a few times a day. If you miss your question, just ask me again. No worries. Thanks, everybody, for your support. See you guys here next month. If you guys want to see more AMAs, tag Dasha on Telegram and tell her you want to see more of this amazing face in your, I don't know, on your device, I guess. I don't even know how to end that sentence. All right, guys. Cheers. Thanks for everything.